Welcome, everyone. Those of you who are coming on, we are happy to have you here. All right, I think we're ready to get started. We have a good group here. Please continue to introduce yourself in the chat, and I will stop sharing the slides, and we will get our conversation started. So first, I would like to introduce myself and my colleagues. My name is Becky Ramsing, and I work at the Johns Hopkins Center for a Livable Future. We work as science advisors to the Meatless Monday campaign, and have been active in just promoting and working with all the partners around the world who promote Meatless Monday or other practices to reduce meat consumption and just pursue sustainable diets. So we're really excited. The strength of our work is with all of you and the work that you do. And so today we really wanted to talk about what's happening in the cities. There's a lot of work being done, especially with the climate conferences and international meetings about the role of the city. And so we've seen some great things happen and just wanted to share that with you. So I'm going to now pass this over to my colleague, Daphne Altima Johnson, and she will introduce our panel, and we will go from there. And again, just a few housekeeping items. The chat will stay open for you to introduce yourself. If you have a specific question that you want answered at the end, please put it in the Q&A section, Q&A box below at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will answer those questions at the end. And I think that is it. Oh, also, if you want to join, and then we'll have the slide again. We have a global community where we can share information, events, and our resources, and we will share that in the chat. And please join. It's just a two-step. You just ask to join, and then we and then we will approve you, and you're part of the community. So definitely, that's a great way to continue this conversation after this webinar. So I will now introduce Daphne.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are in this part of the globe. So I welcome you. It is my pleasure actually to be able to sit here to chat with our four panelists, which I'm excited to introduce you to. They've been working in the meat reduction space, and they're in cities, communities, organization. But before we start, I would like to introduce you to them. Please bear with me because I actually don't want to mess up their names, don't want to miss their work. So my eyes will be wondering, nothing has to do with you guys, just me. So we're going to start with Midge Iorio, which I did ask her how to pronounce that. She did tell me how to do it. She is the executive director of Bedford 2030 in 2018, Bedford 2020, now 2030, implemented a 12-week community citywide Meatless Monday campaign that engaged volunteers, businesses, local institutions, and citizens. She has been working in that space for quite some time. So we're looking forward to hearing from her. We have joining us, Will Mendes, who is a business manager and handles government relations for Sociedade Vegetariana. Will, that sounds okay? Which is a local organization founded in 2003 that promote plant-based diets by organizing Veg Fest, promoting Meatless Monday, along with many other offerings. Next on the panelist list, we have Marley Renkler, who is a sociologist, translator, and honorary president of the Brazilian Vegetarian Society. Marley led a process with the Brazilian Vegetarian Society that culminated in the launch of Meatless Monday in Sao Paulo City in 2019, which was followed by Meatless Monday in the schools in 2021. Lastly, we have Nital Jet Alal, who is a plant-based nutrition researcher, economics researcher with plant-based data, and is the president of the Toronto Vegetarian Association. So all of you, welcome. Thank you for joining us on behalf of the Monday campaigns and the Johns Hopkins Center for a Livable Future. These people have worked in their fields for a long time, and we are looking forward to learning from you This is meant to be a casual conversation. And so if you guys have any questions as we chat, please put them in the Q&A as Becky has noted. So all of you guys, I will start with maybe Midge or Molly. Please feel free to jump in, the other panelists. What was the reason you guys thought for starting a meat reduction campaign, such as Meatless Monday? So who would like to take on that? Midge, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and what a great community. So Bedford 2030 is a grassroots nonprofit organization, and our mission is to lead a community-based climate action movement with very specific greenhouse gas reduction goals. Our first goal was to reduce emissions 20% by 2020, which we actually achieved. We're proud to say we exceeded it. And we now have a mission to reduce emissions 80% by 2030. And so our challenge is to drive behavior change and make reducing emissions and carbon footprint relevant. So we started the Meatless Monday campaign and conducted it because we wanted to help people understand the relationship between food choice and their carbon footprint and our community's carbon footprint. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm muted. I'm sorry. So now your experience, can you tell us a little bit about your community though? Can you tell us a little bit about your community that Bedford?
Sure. So we're in northern Westchester, about 45 miles north of Manhattan. It's a suburban, fairly rural community. And I would say that as a community, we're definitely, climate action is really a priority. Our organization was formed by community members who back in 2010 decided that it was really important for our community to make a difference in reducing emissions and preserving our natural resources. And our town had one of the first climate action plans in all of New York State. And we really have a great partnership between our town government, Bedford 2030, and the community at large.
Okay, very good. Now, Marley, your experience is probably different because you're in Brazil. So how was that for you? What was the reason for you guys starting a Meatless Monday campaign? You are on mute, Marley.
Well, we at the Brazilian Vegetarian Society, we were already in good terms with the environment secretary of the São Paulo city, which, it's a very large city. It's about 12 million inhabitants. Then we were already trying to start a meatless day in São Paulo. And this secretary, he supported us. It was in 2007. Then in 2009, so we were talking about Meatless Day, Meatless Monday, or something like that. Then in 2009, I learned from Tobias Lienert from Ghent, Belgium, that he got the support for his program in his city, Ghent, for a Meatless Monday campaign. And this was attracting a lot of media covering, and he was very excited about that. Then I thought, well, maybe we can do that also here. And right away, I sent a message to this secretary, Dr. Eduardo Jorge, and he right away supported our campaign. So we built together the campaign with the government, the Secretary of Environment, and the Brazilian Vegetarian Society. And in about 3 to 4 months, we launched it in the biggest park of São Paulo city. And it got a lot of covering from the media. Also, the biggest newspaper of São Paulo and one of the biggest of Brazil, asked us to give them to be for them to be the only ones who give the news.
I wanted the first one to make the announcement.
Yes. And they gave us 2 big pages in that newspaper, and it was a lot of covering. Then, well, these I can tell you about that later, but there were complaints from the meat industry. But later on, I'll talk about that.
Okay. So this is good. I'm hearing from both you and Midge, though, that, you know, the government, you guys had people that had an interest, right? There was an interest in it, so that, you know, within 4 months, Marley, you were able to do it. And Midge, you had, you know, climate, everybody, you know, you were in a community that's very aware, right? Educated about climate, the effect of climate, et cetera, and health. But I will say, but for some other countries, right? You know, we at our center, you know, we know it's not as difficult. They have some challenges, you know, as you started saying, Marley, that sometimes, you know, the meat organizations or other communities, they're just not for it, you know, they think it's kind of like a fluff. So I'll ask you, Will, and Nital, what were, for you, what were some like circumstances that you didn't possibly see coming, or what were some challenges that work and that you implemented that work that made the implementation of Meatless Monday or any plant-based forward program successful, and what didn't make it successful? What strategies worked and what didn't?
Well, I think, sorry, it's for Will.
Yeah, for who was that the question? For me or Marley?
Yeah. No, you can start. Marley can add. You can start. Go ahead, Will. Start.
Oh,
You can start.
okay.
Yeah. Sorry about
So
that.
I just got a bit confused. Sorry.
No,
I don't want to interrupt her. So I came earlier from since August now in the vegetarian society, Brazilian vegetarian society. But I was already working in the city hall when we introduced Meatless Monday here in the place I live. So I was the politician, I would say, like that, who helped them to introduce in this. And I think the best path, the best way that I am having some success now in my prospections is to talking with the politicians. Is like I have to understand the political scenario in each city or each state of the country. Because if you go talking to someone that is against the government, then this also will just stop in the drawer, like won't go further. So you have to understand each place how to compose. Like, for example, the city council, that some places I think is in America they say city councilor. Here in Brazil, we have a like kind of a municipal chamber. So we have like an MP for the cities, or something like that. It's not a real council, but so you have to find how he's doing with the mayor, and then try to search for them, or also at least the mayor and the secretary of education or environment. And my goals are coming from my relationship that I have from years in the Green Party, the local Green Party. So I'm also a member of the National Green Party. This is opening the door for me, because people, they cannot say, okay, they just close the door. No, they just are always open, because you are a member of their party. But even when I'm not, I think the proposal is let's shine. I would say they're shining the eye. I would say like something like this. They get really excited. It's about the training we offer. To introduce new options in the Meatless Monday or whatever, even if it's not on Monday. But this training for the cooks is what they really think it's good. And when we did here in the place I live, also the news, we got a lot of attention from the news, especially because you are doing something good. You are training the cooks to make a better food, a healthier food for the kids. We're talking about the municipal schools, public schools, I would say. So not talking about private, but this also is spread around the cities they see the news and they ask you what you're doing and what's going on, because we want this too for us. So this is the best advertisement we have for Meatless Monday. I'm thinking here. And one of the challenges is the name. When you say about, for example, Meatless Monday, it's something I would say negative when they saw it the first time, because especially here we are in the third world country that people are having access to money in the last few, maybe 10 years, and they think it's meat is also some about social. It's not only about to eat meat, but because they didn't have access to meat before. Now, not that the meat is getting, it was something expensive anymore. It was in the back in time, but not anymore, because we know how they produce meat. So it's not a good quality, but then people now, they think meat is a kind of social, you are in high social status when you have meat in your plate. So when we offer them Meatless Monday, they think, okay, but I'm a politician. People are happy to eat meat down the school because they don't have in their houses. They're poor people. Then you ask me to take one day out. So I always tell them that the name is something that's so small comparing with the what you gain with that about healthy issues and also the environment. And then we convince them with this, but not with taking out, but something introduce some vegetable or other kind of protein that's not coming from animals. That's our more the biggest challenge now. Yeah, and also to understand how the political scenario works in each place, because this makes a lot of difference. If you want to have success, you have to be on the side of the politician. Doesn't matter if he's a right or left wing. You have to
have him on your side. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, Natal, what would you say for you in Toronto? How has your experience been?
Well, it's a good question. I know Will and Marley have been further along in their campaigns, but I can say, generally speaking, we've learned a strategy that focuses solely on moving the needle through public policy won't advance change fast enough. So the pandemic showed that even with public policy here in Canada moving more towards plant-based foods, we have a new food guide for last year's that promotes plant-based foods over animal-based foods, and we've committed to becoming a world leader on plant-based protein. And municipally, as many of you guys know, Toronto's a C4 city, but we can't wait on them to start following through on these commitments to get involved, is what we've learned, because understandably, the pandemic took front and center stage. And so when it comes to food during a crisis, procurement becomes the main focus. And Matt Noble, the executive director of the food bank, where I'm on the board as well, has been really focused on that. And so through his conversations, you see the city just, simply put their hands up and say, we lack the bandwidth. And so, and we're all well aware of how overwhelmed food banks have been during the pandemic. So when that happens, and when food and diet take a backseat to emergency healthcare, there's a large advocacy and programming vacuum that civil society, like people like us, need to step in and try and fill. And especially what we've learned is when there's many individual institutions or spaces that have the autonomy to take that action. So what we're seeing is that it makes sense, like what's been working for us so far, and again, like we're still in the earlier stages here, but it's getting increasingly exciting, is tackling, having meetings with the city, meetings early on, but still with the school boards, and where centralized decisions are happening, but also then empowering and activating and getting involved on the grassroots level. And for example, with schools and universities in Canada and in Toronto, we've seen at several instances of young students here taking meat reduction action into their own schools. It was actually my 8-year-old niece, Karina, who inspired this whole Global Veg Network initiative that Marley and I have partnered on. And so after you see that work, our goal now is partly not just to continue those conversations, but now how do we get a larger network of parents, teachers, students, all interested. And we even discovered recently, a member on our committee, Sweta, had a conversation with somebody where a parent brought up a Meatless Monday initiative at a PTA meeting and got unanimous support in that meeting, and bam, that was their flight path to getting Meatless Monday going, which made us realize, wow, it's not just going through teachers or activating students. Parents are also important. So we're planning a call to action through the TVA, kind of to see who's to first see who's done some successful stuff if they want that amplified, and that we can learn from, but then also to start with even my own high school and alma maters and stuff, and work from the ground up there. That seems so far to be a successful strategy. And I would also say specifically following the paper trails for who's referring to or exploring climate action in your city leads to a lot of really cool doors opening. And just last week, my co-chair Mark Simmons on the committee realized that at the Toronto District School Board, they've now adopted this climate action report and are exploring how to become more plant-based and promote those in schools. So we have learned overall that working through teachers is a great way to go, but that there's many different approaches. And likewise, I won't take up too much time here, but there's a ton of good stuff going on at universities in Canada, which is being led by this plant-based transition coalition. And so what they're doing there is they're not just they're creating steering committees at each of these universities that involve, it's not just, so sometimes it's professors and students involved, but also chefs, culinary directors and food and beverage and service providers. And like David Spite out in UBC has become a bit of a national treasure in my mind. And I only recently just met him you can't even buy beef at UBC campus. And over 5,000 students are now getting plant-based meals a day because of the programs that he's leading. And now he started teaching and running workshops with other chefs at other universities. And so we're seeing a lot of this Canadian university momentum pick up. So our focus is, with that underway, our focus is largely on schools and with the city. And yeah, again, just for, and finally, if you can get data, we ran a poll recently that can really add ammo to your advocacy and fuel a lot of public support for your initiative.
I'm really for data. I really think when you show, especially politicians, I believe when you show them, you can tell them all you want about, until you're blue in the face that this is what you need to do. But when you show them some numbers and actually have a visual to go with it, I do think that speaks 1,000 words. But I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to ask that question to every one of you actually, because you mentioned COVID. COVID has been in really interested animals, this pandemic. And there were so many things that's going on in the food system. Obviously, we can see what happened, to the supply chain of it. But, sometimes some populations, when you start talking about, climate, the effect of, meat production on climate, when you start talking about Meatless Monday, they just kind of turn off, right? Because they just think you're telling them not to eat meat at all, which is not what Meatless Monday is about. As all of you know, it's one day a week, just trying to eliminate meat. But there are some people that, especially with COVID, that we see their struggle to get enough food, right? So my question to you guys, are from actually all of you, because it's different in different countries and different populations and based on cultural differences. How do you tackle that? How do you make Meatless Monday? How can it be relevant to populations that struggle to get enough food, or specifically foods high in protein and micronutrients? One argument Becky and I, who is my counterpart, you always hear about, well, if you have a plant-based diet, there's no way you can get enough protein. How do you deal with some of the issues, access, and just like telling them, no, you can actually do this? This is for all of you. Whoever want to answer it or whatever, please feel free to start. Marley, you unmute. I think you're speaking. Go ahead, Marley.
In our case, what worked was that we called for a public hearing in the municipal chamber. And then our nutritionist, who were very well prepared, we invited all the nutritionists of the municipal education secretary, sorry. And then he explained how the vegetarian and vegan meals are correct, are fit for every age and all that. So first we attracted the nutritionists for our side. Then when we went to talk with the municipal secretary of education, and he wanted to implement this program, the nutritionists didn't go against it because they were prepared already. So I think this is one strategy that functioned. It functioned for us, at least.
the education. So anybody else, like, how have you basically, deal with the issue with COVID? Some people struggle with access, or, with some of the education, lack of education about, plant forward eating. How have you deal with that? Natal, I see you're unmuted. You have something to add?
I'm sorry.
No, you're on mute. No, it's
Well,
okay.
I was Marley just reminded me there's an important education component for sure.
Yes.
I think we're a little bit luckier in Canada now that the federal food guide changed in 2018, that there's more top-down support there. But one thing I think is underappreciated is just how food insecurity is pervasive, regardless of what country you're in. Like, it's more underappreciated in Western countries where we think that, we have it so good. And so it's weird here in Canada because we spend less than 10% of our income. We're one of very few countries that spends less than 10% of our income on food. And yet food insecurity affects 1 in 8 Canadians. And as you mentioned, getting these nutrients out is important. So as far as the information goes, I support what Marley said, that the education is important. But also, I think Meatless Mondays can be used as not just a vehicle to educate the public, but there's now formal evidence. There's an Oxford study shown last month that plant-based diets are actually cheaper. I think they looked at 150 countries, and that vegan diets were found to be the most affordable and reduce food costs by up to a third. And that even reducing like flexitarian diets, because it's important. Like Meatless Mondays is about reductionism, right? You're not trying to get everybody to eliminate everything, and which has been shown to work more effectively. And so even if you just cut back on meat and dairy, you'll reduce your costs. And I don't think most people appreciate that. I'm sure you guys have all experienced like hearing these kind of nonsensical arguments how vegan diets are more expensive. And secondly, I'll just say that I really believe Meatless Mondays can be a gateway for educating children more into growing their own food, and empowering people to grow their own food is one of the most sustainable ways to help marginalized populations, like quickly increase their access to healthy and more affordable food. So like in Canada, we're getting half of our calories from ultra processed food. And the group consuming the most is 9 to 13-year-old kids. So, but meanwhile, the interest in food is growing. So 1 in 5 Canadians took up gardening during the pandemic last year. And more than half of us grew at least one fruits or vegetables. So I think in 2017, I read a study that there's an American university, maybe it's MSU, that kids are more willing to try new foods that they grow themselves. So personally, I like those areas are important to me in terms of empowerment. I don't know enough about how you actually get that going, but I actually believe that sprouting can be a silver bullet for delivering high micronutrient affordable foods to many marginalized populations. And Doug Evans, who's like the sprout master out there, is on a mission right now to get every city to have sprouting clubs.
And Natal, you made a really good point that we really try to hum on with Meatless Monday, is that it's not about, it's reduction. It's a reduction campaign, right? We're not saying it's not elimination. And I think a lot of people, because they see the meatless and then they don't read for that. It turns them off. But it is really a wonderful way to just start this thing, this, life and into having more plant-based diet. And I always said there's more ways to skin a cat. You can start, if you don't, Monday is not for you, do it on a Tuesday. If it's not the whole day, start with dinner time. So I think there's a lot of positive that, when for a Meatless Monday or midday, diet, movement that you can do. But that being said, Midge, I'm going to go back to you because you have a very special community, and based on outsider, right? I can say your campaign that you guys ran was very, very successful, but I know it required a very huge effort on your part. It was not something that was easy. So can you specifically share with us what you did from a policy perspective that led Bedford to where it is now? And now you even now have Bedford 2030. So how did you get there? What was like the catalyst that said, you know what, this is what we need to do to bring about success?
Okay, that's a lot. That's a big question, but okay. So I do want to say we
do the best that you can.
We do have an amazing community, but we're still trying to drive behavior change among the masses, and that is the challenge. And really, with I'll just talk about Meatless Monday first. This campaign was really successful on a lot of levels, and the government involvement in this campaign was. We used our town government as a sort of an endorser. So they passed a resolution in support of the campaign. So it wasn't, a policy. And we went out and recruited a group of people from all different, parts of the community, schools, local restaurants, parents. And we created a 12-week community. And we actually had an opportunity to come online once a week. And I'd read a newsletter once a week, share recipes. Our local restaurants, I think there were like 40 local restaurants participated by one way or another, or 40 local partners, but a bunch of local restaurants offered menu items. And we really had a dialogue going for 12 weeks. And our goal there, we of course wanted people to eat, a higher plant-based diet, because that's better for the planet and better for them. But it really opened people's eyes to how they could have an impact in terms of addressing the climate crisis with their food choice. And that's really our challenge, is to really take this sort of hard to picture image of greenhouse gas emissions or your carbon footprint and make it real to people and give them an opportunity to do something. So this was also a great gateway into our whole movement. And, the last thing I would say, just sort of in your bigger question, is, we do have a climate action plan with two of them now that have been passed by our town. So it's not a law, but our town, collectively is committed to a goal and specific climate action measures, and we're working on them together. And our organization, we do, and especially in the second 10 years, we do have some policy changes that we're pushing for. And we have to really prioritize them, because we have a wide range of action areas, from food to energy to land to transportation. And so we are working to get laws changed to advance our agenda. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Which kind of leads me to, I know time is moving on me as always. I knew this was going to happen, but it's all good. I do have a question for all of you though. You all, within your respective space, you have managed to do something that some cannot do for many reasons. But I think what I did hear, the thread here that I'm hearing, is that when you think about partners, when you think about the key players, it seems like government support is huge. Like, within your cities, just stakeholders, if you're dealing with schools, start talking to whoever is in charge of that. Obviously parents, you got to educate them. I think I do know the key players for you guys as it relates to that. But the thing that some cities struggle with, they may be able to start it, right? And do an implementation, do a big powerhouse. Yes, we're going to do Meatless Monday, but they have issue keeping the momentum going. So how do you ensure long-term success, and what does that look like in your respective community? Anybody can take it. Will, you wanna say, how does success look like for you? Maybe how does it look like, and how do you get the momentum? I know I directly hit you on that one.
Okay, I think it's the legacy we are living now with this program, because when you have a massive number of people eating plant-based food in this Meatless Monday, for example, when you have this introduced in the city, this calls attention, like I told you, but other small groups, they're starting to do the same, like private schools. They are asking how it's going on. What is this it for? So, and also some small NGOs also working with that. So we're here in the place I live, we have an NGO that just started a program that they sell food for $1. It's a vegan food for $1, just to help and to show them that the food is good and healthy and can be cheap. So I think the legacy is the most important thing we are leaving for these people, and then engaging in the cause, and also knowing more about this, because sometimes people just come for the cheap food or the healthy food, but they can see beyond that. Then it's time to talk and to introduce them what it happens with the animals and the environment, about one day less eating meat in their life. I think it's about this, a legacy.
Okay. All right, so I think, let me see, I'm gonna check on my time. Okay, I'm at 10:38, so I'm going to start answering some questions for you guys that this concludes my kind of specific question that I had, but I just want to give some love to our audience just to make sure, just to basically see what we have here about the question. So let's see. Let's look. Discussion of carbon. Do you all, oh, okay. Do you all discuss the distinction between industrial mass-produced CAFO meat and sustainable raised livestock on pasture and regeneratively? Okay, so let's see. You want to get, okay, go ahead. Yep.
So that's a great question. And interestingly, when we initiated our Meatless Monday campaign, there is a farm in our community, that produces cattle and beef, and they do use sustainable practices, and they really pushed us and said, you're telling people that they can't eat meat, and we said we weren't saying that, but and so that was really a great teachable moment that yes, plant-based food is good for you and it's good for the planet, and plant-based food, and meat that's grown a certain way also is better for the planet. So that is something that came out of that campaign, and is something going forward, if we were to do the campaign again, that I think that we would definitely incorporate into that, and something that Bedford 2030, as natural climate solutions is a big action area for us. And so sustainably raised food is very important.
Okay, okay, good. So
I want to say something.
Molly, yep, I was about to say, how would you want to add anything to that? Go ahead.
Yeah, when we started the Meatless Monday in schools in São Paulo, well, first of all, São Paulo serves 2 million meals every day. So it is the biggest restaurant in the world.
Okay.
So some people complained, you are using soy instead of meat. I said, yes, we are using soy instead of meat. So it's a big advance. Of course, well, first, against soy, there is nothing that the studies say that is not good. It is good. It is a good food. But also we can improve. We can go step by step. It is not, when we say do something, it doesn't say that you cannot improve it much than that. So we can use, for instance, organic food in the school meals. We are using it already. So the discussion is on, and it's when we start a program, we do what is possible. It doesn't say that you cannot improve it.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. I have a question though for you guys. That's actually I touch on it a little bit, but I'm gonna bring it back. And Natal and I were talking about it, and it's an important question that Becky and I deal with sometimes when we have cities who start a Meatless Monday or start a plant-based information. Sometimes we have to look at it and say, well, how has it been successful? How do you guys use data to, for program evaluation and assessing like progress and so on? Or how do you use data to bring about, behavior change, to tell people this is something that we need to work on and this is why and why it's important. So, let me know what y'all doing with that.
I can jump in really quick here, just because yesterday I actually had a conversation with Councilman Pete Fry, the Vancouver City Councilor, who pushed for or championed for the recent resolution they passed to move towards 20% more plant-based purchasing. And he mentioned the power of data. Like, so the Humane Society report that came out, that was a big part of that decision, was a key factor. And so I just made a plug for plant-based data in the chat here in terms of anybody who's looking into, I really highly recommend my colleague Nick's research, because there's a lot of discussion right now, which is needed around regenerative animal agriculture and the question we just heard about with CAFLOs versus more holistic raising methods, etc. And the math gets really interesting when you look at those models that are supposed to be scaled up. We just haven't seen any success on a wider scale from models. But back to data, just I know you asked about program implementation here, Daphne. Just I would like to emphasize the fact that you had mentioned this reductionist versus elimination messaging, and being a very much in the vegan movement, that is something that is a conversation that I think we need to have a little more, and look at that data and discuss it and say, and you guys must be well familiar with this and at Meatless Mondays. But even the Fuanalytics study last year showed that 60% of people are willing to take a meat reduction pledge, but only like 15% would do elimination. And that's one thing. And the other thing that I think we have to appreciate as vegans, this is again, sorry, not specifically the data you're discussing, is virtue signaling. So we just ran a survey in Toronto, the results of which we'll release, which are very positive, but lots of people say they want to reduce their meat and then have trouble. So we find it really helpful there, like to try and empower, try and get in more, like, and help people there. And that's where I think Midge was the one who mentioned, like, behavioral research has been really important. So when you are looking at data, especially on behavioral psych and behavioral economics and systems change, the work of like the behavioral insights team and the nudge units, that's really important for understanding how to connect the dots between the data and actually affecting change.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I'll take one question actually from the audience because I like.
Mitch
I'm sorry, could I just say one thing?
Yes.
I don't know, Becky, you could chime in.
Yeah.
So when we did our
Okay.
campaign, we actually worked in partnership with the Mondays campaign and with the Center for a Livable Future. And we surveyed our participants before, during, and after our campaign. And we actually learned that through participating in this campaign, we moved the needle in terms of people saying they would choose meatless meals because it's a climate solution.
Yeah.
So by being a part of this campaign and learning about all of the reasons to go meatless, we actually had an impact. So that's powerful data, and we aim to we share this campaign with other communities, and so I don't know, Becky, if there's anything you'd want to add.
That's a great summary, because one thing that we did find that I thought was really interesting is a lot of people reduce meat because of health, and we know that's a good starting point to talk about health and taste, but they were much more open to the climate message, and they really shifted their thoughts around climate and environment and the food that they ate. So we didn't have to go in with they didn't go in with a big club saying, meat is bad. And one of the questions here I see is about, how do you approach these communities where meat is really part of the culture, or, part of something you've earned and you can now afford, so how do you not villainize meat, but talk more about sustainable diets and have this message of healthy, delicious food. So,
and I think one of the ways to talk about meat as well is to talk about, like, the importance, raising, if this is what how do you go about doing that? You need to know about, farming practices. You need to know, some healthy, sustainable way that can be done. And so I think focusing, again, not elimination, but reduction, it's the key. Though, and I think one thing Will said this, and Molly said that you got to know your audience. Don't try to do anything in a community without really studying your audience and knowing what messages will work and what won't work, because that's just not a good way. It's just going blindsided and you don't know what's coming at you. So I think you have to really study your population, understanding their culture, and culture is different from everyone, to really understand, well, what is the first step that we could be done. That being said, are we going to wrap up? But I will ask this question, which I think is a very, very good question that Dalila brought up for all of you, that she asked. I'm going to read it, but what are the first steps in introducing Meatless Monday to my community? She said she heard a few such fan organizations that are following climate change, city governments, in your opinion, what is the very first thing I can do to get the ball rolling successfully? I think that's a really good question. So you guys have done this in your communities. Each of you, what is, if you have one thing she can do, what will that be?
One thing.
Just to start. to
Yeah,
get the
yeah,
ball-
maybe everyone do one more thing and
Okay.
then we could, yeah.
I can start this.
Okay.
I would just say to her to find some backup first, to have some really good informations, and then bring this to the place she wants to become in a meatless reduction. For example, if it's a city hall, then go to decision makers who is responsible for the food. If it's in a small community like a private school, but first of all, have some backup information. They would support her, I believe. So this would be my first advice to start.
Okay.
I would say just remember that Meatless Monday, at least in my mind, is a grassroots campaign. So for us, you know, whatever your community is recruit some leaders and influencers. So for us, that was our town participating, some schools participating, and just some regular community members who would be ambassadors and bring more people in. So building a community to build the community was my suggestion.
Got it. Got it. Ms. Howell, any takeaway from you?
I have to admit, I'm so sorry. I got so interested in these questions right here that
Yeah,
I lost
I know.
track of the
I
thread.
told Becky there were some really good questions.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize.
No, it's okay. No, what I was wondering is like, if there's one thing someone can do to get the ball rolling for Meatless Monday, what would that be?
Oh, you know what? I would start local, like pick a place and like pitch them. And I would recommend you start, like, I think we're finding success with places that have outspoken or public environmental commitments. So if you find somewhere that's not plant-based or hasn't even tried a meat reduction campaign, but they you know, they're bespoke to climate change.
Yeah,
boom,
yeah, they have
put them
that
up.
policy. Yep, exactly. Yeah, I want to say Bedford is one, and I think recently, was it Stanford, Becky, who is doing, which one of the, yeah, but that's what happened. If you're like a city or something that has it within their, you know, their policies, like we have to do this, we have to reduce emission, we have to, you know, to have
Berkeley.
sustainability plans. Yeah, so that's definitely a good way to do it. Becky, are we
How about
going-
Marley? Marley, do you have one thing?
Yes. Well, it was my experience. I don't know if it works for the others, but here to have laws about reducing meat doesn't work because people doesn't like to follow laws. Now the law forbid you to eat meat. They don't like it. So to go to the government and to go to the executive people is better because they are more open to adopt a reduction program like Meatless Monday.
Well, thank you. This has been really good. We could have spent another 2 hours with all of you and learning from you. For those of you who are here, please join our global community where we can continue this conversation. It's just it's a web platform where you can you know, put events you have up, put your maybe if you have a new resource, you can put that up on your bulletin board. We can all see that. And we will have another session tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we'll have some more speakers. So please sign up for that. It'll be on that. You should have that that invitation as well. So, and we will take these questions. If your question wasn't answered, we will try to answer those and have those for you as well. And our panelist information is on our event page. Trying to think what else, but we're just so happy to have you and want to just set you out to have a great rest of your day, whether or not it's breakfast or lunch or dinner, that you will enjoy a nice meatless meal today. So thank you again to our panelists for giving us your time. We really appreciate all you do. And this is how these movements spread. So thank you. Bye-bye.